Hey mages, welcome to today's video. It's a budget meta video today. Today I'm going to be giving you 5 decks that are very limited rares compared to some of the really top meta decks that are running around with 30, 35, 40 plus rares. We all know that it's very hard to build a meta deck, or maybe one or two, so you can play something, and have a bit of variety. So I find these decks, I source them out, decks that still run, competing in the meta, that are fewer rares. Today, these decks, there's a lot of less rares in these, I'll tell you. It's there's a deck with 2 rares, 4 rares, 8, 10 and 12. So even at the top end with 12 rares, it's still very, very budget compared to the rest of the meta decks. These will get you wins on the ranked ladder. You can take them as high as you want to go. Or if you fancy playing something a bit different, or you're a new player to MTG Arena and you wanted to build a quite a competitive deck, then these decks hopefully will help you along the way. So just before we go and take a look, just want to say thank you to my sponsors, Cardmarket. If you want to get these decks in paper and take into your FNM, go and take a look, follow the link below and go and buy and trade those cards if you can. And big shout out to my patrons. If you want to support me, Total MTG, a bit further, you can go and check the link below. But without further ado, let's get on to have a look at these decks. So the first deck we have to look at today is a Budget Dimir control deck, and this deck runs just 2 rares. Now, straight off the bat, I'm going to say with a lot of these decks, the ways to upgrade them straight away will be by upgrading the lands, but these decks have still been competing very well in the meta and on the ladder and in rank. So yeah, if you want to upgrade the lands, it's only going to make these decks better. If something that you do want to see where I take all these decks and upgrade them to their full amount, please comment down below and smash the like button so I know that's something that you want to see, and I can do that for a future video after this. So this is Dimir Control, and this can win by potentially hitting with creatures, but it is a toxic deck, and this toxic deck doesn't even need to do any combat damage with the creatures to actually win the game. The idea of this deck, you've probably seen it and come across it. It can be very frustrating to play against. It has a card called Prologue to Phrysis. I'm not going to pronounce that right, but that's how I'm going to say it. Each opponent gets a poison counter, draw a card. Now, the idea of the deck is to get that first poison counter if you can, and then just build them up to the 10 to win the game. It has ways to do that outside of the creatures. So once you've got that first kind of counter, Experimental Augury, look at the top 3 cards, 1 in your hand, rest in the bottom of your library, you get to proliferate, which means you can go and add another one of those counters onto opponent as well. We have removal like Drowning Anchor. It's sorcery, but does get rid of the majority of creatures at -4/4 and has proliferate as well with this, which means we can then just keep adding up those toxic counters, which is what we want to be doing as well. We have Reject Imperfection. Counter target spell. If the spell has mana value 3 or less, we get to proliferate. Now this card can be hit and miss sometimes because you might have to use it earlier before you've got the poison counter, but don't ever hold back. If it's something that needs to be dealt with, counter it and don't worry about the proliferate with that. That's just from my experience in playing Reject Imperfection. Vraska's Betrayal Sting is one of the 2 rares in this, so mythic rare. Vraska, it's a nice win con. You can 0 it, draw a card, you lose 1 life, go through your deck, get what you need, but you get to proliferate with this. So if you've got the other Planeswalker on the field, which is K2 Shizuki, you can actually proliferate and up the counters on this as well. This one also has draw a card, you discard a card unless you attack, you can make an unblockable ninja, and then the emblem is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. So Vraska does a great job. It does removal with the -2, the -9 if you get to it. Target players fewer than 9 poison counters make the difference, but really, if you're not doing that before you get to that, you're probably not winning the game, to be fair. You need those poison counters on there, and winning probably a lot quicker than you can get to the -9 on that. So for the creatures in the deck, we have Bilious Skull Dweller, Death Touch, Trade with Anything, acts as a removal, Toxic 1 on there as well. We have the Voidwing, so Voidwing Hybrid, just the 8 creatures in this deck and 30 non-creature spells, as you can see, with a CMC average of 2.2. Voidwing can be get back from the graveyard to your hand whenever you proliferate. Flying has evasion, Toxic 1. You can get this down, and there is obviously ways, apart from it does get exiled, that you will be able to get this back from the graveyard whenever you do proliferate. And as you can see, we've got lots of cards to proliferate as well. We have Bring the End In. a counter spell that works well with poison counters. If we have the corrupted, we just counter it, or we have to counter and play, you know, opponent pays 2. So a very good card early, even if we don't have the corrupted on our side. But Bring the Ending can counter, you know, a lot of stuff early, which is good. Anoint with Affliction, again another corrupted card. Exile target creature as mana value 3 or less, or if it's corrupted, just exile that creature instead as well, if we give our opponent 3 or more poison counters. So this is a deck that has a lot of synergy, as you can see. We've got more card draw here with Distorted Curiosity. Costs 2 less, the opponent has 3 or more poison counters. This potentially will be a 1-drop that will then draw us 2 cards, which will be absolutely brilliant. 1 pip potential, late game really good to draw into more proliferate, removal, or, you know, find our Vraska or our Kato if, you know, if we get to that part of the game where we need them in there as well. Land base, like I said, you can upgrade the land base. It's very basic, but this has still been doing very well. So Dismal Backwater, a couple gain life, and a couple of waterfront districts that can help us draw cards late games, and then just a mixture of islands and swamps as well. So 23 lands in total, because it is a very low CMC deck. We just have 1 card that's, you know, more than 3 CMC, which is the Vraska that can just be played for 5 with the Phyrexian mana if we need to as well. But these two add a bit of extra power. Now, if you want to go 0, you really can go 0 rare with this deck. But like I said, it will take away a little bit of the power, but it is possible to do that. You can potentially add in a couple of other cards that you find, or you can maybe swap them for a couple of rare lands, because this package here can win the games. I've won many games without even playing these two, but I sourced the decks, and this is a deck that was getting wins, and it's on the ladder and playing as it is. So still, with just 2 mythic rares, a very low budget meta deck. Now we go to everyone's non-favourite deck to play that you might just get some quick wins as soon as you play your island and your turn 1 spell. Mono blue, just the 4 rares in this deck, and it's just Haughty Djinn. So this is a deck that will always, you know, has been creeping up every single month when we look at these decks for the budget meta, because it's just sometimes it has 6 or 7 rares. Now this is the version that's been doing well with 4. So we have lots of, you know, 1 drops and 2 drops. The CMC average of this is 2.2, 12 creatures and 27 non-creature spells in that. And your 4 rares are your Haughty Djinn, straight in there, the Flying Djinn that builds up when instants and sorcery spells go into the graveyard, and then it makes them cheaper as well when this is on the field. Land base, super easy, 21 islands there. Upgrade it if you want to add a couple of Ottawaras in there. The bounce land could be helpful, as sometimes it can bounce your own Djinn as well, which is good. The other creatures in the deck, 4 Delver's Secrets, good turn 1 play and easily flipped potentially, as long as you just don't keep hitting the lands and everything like that. You need those instants and sorceries that we do have a lot of. And then the beatdown of the familiar Tellurian Terror, the Serpent that costs 1 less to cast, with instants and sorceries in the graveyard. 5/5, has War 2. Obviously, it's still a very good creature, and it's good for this deck. Can just be blocked with a little token, no trample or anything like that, but still a threat that, you know, that can trade off with the Sheoldreds. That's a 4/5, has Death Touch, so you can, you know, take that and kill that. But they generally don't attack with that anyway. But you might be able to get some attacks in and get it off the field, because a 5/5 swinging in 4 swings, if it's left alone, game normally, unless it's a life gain deck. But yeah, what else do we have in a deck? So card draw, bounce, protection, counter. Card drawing, consider Surveil 1 to find what you need, draw a card, Fading Hope. That can be used to bounce your own creature. It's just to return its hand, so you can save your Haughty Djinns and send them back to your hand. Opponent then wastes the removal. You then will get to scry 3, but also good for keeping it clear. We have more protection with Slip Out the Back. Primarily used for the creatures, obviously, because we want it on our creatures, on the Haughty Djinn to protect, and then you can put a 1/1 counter on it as well. Spell Pierce, non-creature spell, costs 2 more if we get to counter that as well. Even more counters, Essence Scatter, we got 2 of them in there, countering the creature spells. Make Disappear, Casualty 1, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So much saying nope in this blue deck. This is why everyone hates playing against it. It has, you know, everything it needs. card draw, impulse to find what you need, looking at the top 4 cards, and then thirst for discovery that works so well in this deck because all we have is basic lands unless you upgrade. Draw 3 cards, discard 2 unless you discard a basic. So we can discard a basic and draw 3 cards, which is, is pretty strong to keep refilling the hand, finding what you need within, with impulse, and obviously finding what you need with consider as well. Deck is, it can be very hard to beat if they have the right line of play of getting the Haughty Djinn and protecting and just stopping you from getting anything on the field. And you can peck away early with a flip Delver of Secrets or put a big blocker up with Tolarian Terror that potentially a lot of the time only costs 1 mana, and you're getting that down really early with the cost of these low mana spells. But Mono Blue is not going away at the moment, and then for 4 rares is a very good top budget meta deck. Now, talking of a deck that's always around, like Mono Blue, Mono Red, of course, but it's changed up a little bit. This is an 8 rare version that's been doing well. First of all, we're going to have a look at the rares. It has a couple of Mishra's Foundry attacking from the lands, which is nice. And it has Nahiri's Warcraft in 5 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle. You look at the top X cards where X is the excess damage dealt this way. And it's put in there simply now because also we play Invasion of Tarkir, which comes in 2 damage to any other target where X's number of cards revealed this way. It does extra damage, but we don't have any dragons in the deck or anything like that. So still does well, but you can use your Nahiri's Warcraft in a one-shot hit, doing the 5 damage and then getting your Defiant Thundermaw, which is a flying trample dragon. Whenever you attack with it, it deals 2 damage to any target. So yeah, that's quite a big beater, and it's a nice addition to the red decks. We also have in there as well, the other rare is Squee Dubious. Squee Dubious Monarch, just a 1-of. You see it sometimes as 1, sometimes as a 2-of. But yeah, that is the 8 rares in total, and this is a very aggressive attacker that can be replayed from the graveyard seed. Graveyard can get filled up very quick with all the 1-drops we have. Kumanu's, the same deck. A lot of the mono red decks if you've been playing for a while. If you're a beginner, it's a really good deck to rank up with. Monastery Swiss Spear, Phoenix Chick as well. We got Play with Fire, all those lovely 1-drops going in there. And then Abraid's coming in, destroying artifacts. There's been a few artifact decks mogging around in meta at the moment. It's always nice to get rid of that big Phyrexian. It's nice when it comes down as the 3/3, the Flesh Gorger. It does cost you a bit of life, but if they get to attack with it and keep gaining that 3 life, it's just gaining. Mono black with the life gain is quite hard for red. You've got to be quick. And once they get the Nahiri in there and they start gaining life, it makes it very hard. But we do have the early package to get a lot of damage in and hopefully finish off the job. Spell Spear. It's a 2/2 that can flip into a 3/3. If you get it to the Spell Stalker, it's so sweet. Trample, War 2, Prowess. You chuck a lightning strike in, you're doubling the power, you're going 5/5 there, 3 damage, and then it's just trying to trample over. Even as the Spell Spear as well, it's still a very good creature, but it does tend to sometimes get picked off a bit. So it's more in there for the late game with only 2 of, because you really want to be flipping the turn, you play it really sometimes. And then we have Furnished Punisher that can really attack the 5-colour decks. Deals 2 damage to that player unless they control 2 or basic lands, and it can really turn into a good turn 3 play and adding in a bit of pressure. And this is a great addition to the red decks. Has Menace as well, and a 3/3 for 3 does a lot of work against a certain amount of decks. Obviously not so much against the mono decks like blue and black, but this can, the 5-coloured control deck that does get seen a fair bit, this can really hurt it. And the Legends deck as well, because they do play a lot of non-basics as well, so a great card for that. So, like I said, we've got the damage in Play with Fire, we've got Lightning Strikes as well. Then the last card to talk about is Wren's Resolve. Exile top 2 cards of your library into an extra turn. You may play those cards, so going through your deck a little bit and trying to find some cards that you might need. 21 basic mountains in there. Mishra's Foundry. I have seen some decks with 4 of these, so if you want to up that to 4, you could probably go in there. But 2 has been an average in the deck, and this is what the deck's been doing to get results on the meta as well. So 8 rares, very good. Mono red, always good, and there's so many different configurations. But yeah, give this one a try. Now we're going to a deck. One of the decks that I just don't like playing against. The type of decks I play, I always find it awkward, and it is the enchantments deck. The enchantments deck here with 10 rares. 2 of those rares are in the lands, brushland, nice. So want to go more budget, you can take them out, but it will take away the consistency because this can come in untapped. and get your turn 1 play in with the generous visitors. Generally not Skrilev, because it normally gets killed straight away, but sometimes it's good to get in there turn 1. If you've got a turn 2 play, then you can just use it to protect. So we do just run 2 of them. But yeah, Brushland is 2 of the rares. Upgrading this in lands is the way to go with this. The main deck is pretty much as is. You could possibly add in another Calyx as well. Calyx Gilded by Fate, 3 mana. This is one of the mythics in the deck, and when another enchantment ends the battlefield under control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. When Calyx or enchanting creature you control just combat damage player, you create a token. It's just such a really cool card for this deck, and very strong, and has really made this deck, a lot harder to beat if this can stay on the field for a couple of turns. So yeah, very, very good card. The other rares in the deck is Kami of Transience. Cast an enchantment spell, put a 1/1 counter on it. So we got, this deck is all about putting counters on stuff as well. Generous Visitor gets counters on a creature. Whenever an enchantment is cast, you can build this up or something else as well. Everything's made cheaper with Jukai Naturalist. Enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast, and you will always find, I don't know what it is, but whenever I play against this deck, maybe you'd find a sign. I see the turn 1 Generous Visitor come in, and then it's always the turn 2 Jukai. Every single time I play against this deck, it is my nemesis. Patreon of the channel, Jake absolutely loves this. It's his deck as well. He loves playing it. So yeah, shout out to you, my friend. He always has a little laugh when I come across this on streams, on Twitch or something like that. But the deck is just very, very good. Has removal with ossification, just for 2 mana, dealing with a lot of problem cards. And then sweet cards like Spirited Companion is a really good common that draws cards. Audacity, always find that this is coming down turn 2, 3 as well. Gives that extra bit of trample, draws cards when it leaves, just very, very good. And then everything can be pumped with Machikus. Now, going back a while, Machikus was a card that I always built around because I just thought it was so good. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact or enchantment you control. And in a deck like this, if you're putting it on a Jukai, you're just getting a massive life swing. So for decks like Mono Red, this can be really hard to beat with a life swing unless you can kill that. So if you're building the Mono Red deck, you don't want Jukai staying on the field. You don't want much of it staying on the field. Calyx and Jukai is what you normally attack first, because these are the strong parts for me of this deck. And if they've got the Skrilev down, then it does make it a little bit harder. Don't, always remember, kill Skrilev first. So, because it's an important card to the deck and just can protect everything that you need ready for the next turn. Commune the Spirits as well. Look at the top 4, revealed enchantment or land card. So for 1 mana, great way for going through the deck and finding what you need as well. But other than that, we've got Weaver of Harmon. I've nearly forgot about that one. This can give all the enchantment creatures +1/1 and copying the target activated ability of a sorcery you control. So anything that gets activated, you can just copy it and do it again. So like Machika comes in, gives something a +1/1. If this hasn't got summon assistant, pay that green target and it will happen again. Weaver, very good card for the deck. All in all, the deck is just really strong. And for 10 rares, you're getting yourself a top deck here that you will definitely be able to rank up with. I know people in the Discord have always told, a couple of people have told me that they've got up to Mythic with this deck as well. So this is a deck with minimal rares that you can definitely rank up with. So the last deck we're talking about today is Bant Toxic, and this has recently come on the scene for me as well, seeing this with 12 rares. A lot of the decks that I've seen with this, it's been quite hard to beat, for a different type of Toxic deck. Different to what we played with the Dimir one. This is a 12 rare version that relies on a very important creature like Venerated Rot Priest, protecting it and doing what you can. Just getting those spells multiplying up whenever a creature you're up on target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. You have ways to target it as well. We've got Aspirant's Accent that can give a creature +3, 1/3 and flying and toxic 1. Protection with Slip Out the Back and it will still trigger Venerated. More protection with Tameo Safekeeping. A couple more of the rares in this deck is March of Swirling Mist. I've seen some decks that run 3 or 4, but this version runs 2, which is nice because we do have a lot of other protection as well. 7 more protection spells there and ways to trigger on the Venerated and keep it out of opponents' eyes of killing. Once you get this going off and you've got the protection in hand, deck just goes mad and it can win really, really quickly. More protection with Skrilev, a very popular card, just a 2 of in this as well. So you have counter action, 4 of these that bring the end in, just like in the Dimir version. Very easy to get the 3 poison counters, just use that as a straight counter spell. And then Proliferating, such a good card. Experimental Augury that goes in, anything that's got counters. Poison, Planeswalkers decks in Standard. Experimental Augury is normally there as well for 2 mana and is very good. Now you have creatures, different creatures in this type of deck. You've got Crawling Chorus that is Toxic 1, makes a creature when it dies as well that also has Toxic. Jawbound Duelist, double strike Toxic 1. So protecting, putting counters on, making it indestructible. Good way of protecting that one because it hits once, does Toxic 1, then it hits again. So you get 2 counters with that as well. And then removal, but still has Toxic, Annex Sentry. So 1/4 comes down. Good turn 3 play because it's with being 3 mana, you're removing that silly little blocker out of the way just so you can get more through, more Jawbones through or anything like that, just so you can get the poison counters up. Now, if you don't have Annex, you've got your 2, your double striker there, but then they've put a blocker in the way. You can just, potentially give it flying, extra Toxic, +1/+3, and get the double strike and do more damage as well. Mirix in there as a 2 of. Makes Toxic tokens, which is very good. Get those Phyrexian Mites onto the field as well. And just basically, that is the way to do this. You are, the main part of this deck is protecting your Rot Priests. If you do lose your Jawbone or Crawling, you'd always savour this one because this is the one that doesn't need to attack, just needs to be targeted to get those poison counters going up. So even if, get to the end of the game and you've just got your slip back, just keep targeting it. If that's the way you're going to win it, that's what you've got to do, is just keep targeting. And it can win without attacking. Another deck that can, once you get that first bit of counter on, you will have to attack with this deck, unlike the other one. We don't run the draw card to get the poison, which, potentially could be a good addition to this deck, but this is how the deck was. And on the meta, I'm not gonna mess around with it, not yet anyway. Land base, you've got a single brush land in here, a Yavimaya Coast, and a lot of basics. Like I said before, updating the lands, more brush lands, more Yavimaya, it's just going to make this deck more consistent because they will obviously tap for 2 different types of land where you get these, good, but to add more consistency, like I said, the lands is what you need. So I'm not talking about adding any more rares to the decks at the moment, but like I said, if that's the video you want to see, like the video a lot. If we get over, sees a lot of likes and gets a lot of comments, I will definitely make that video for you, updating budget version decks, budget meta decks into just stronger with a few more rares. But these decks are all ready to go, all doing well in the meta on the ladder, and great decks with fewer rares is what it's all about. So there's 5 budget meta decks for you today. Let me know what you think of them and which ones are going to give a try. I'm hoping for new players or beginner players or people just want to build different decks. If you've got the majority of the commons and uncommons, hopefully. And then, when we've got decks with 2 rares, 4, 8, that's very low for a meta deck that's going to be competitive. And even the 10 and 12 with the enchantments and the Bant Toxic is still very low compared to, other, mainstream decks that a lot of other people like Mono Black that be running 20, 30 rares and, everything like that. These can still compete with those decks and will get you some wins. No deck can beat any deck. So you will get losses as well. They're not infallible. It's just, sometimes Arena will be Arena as well. So take that into account. But yeah, give them a try. Let me know what you think. And thanks for all the support on these videos. I know this is one of the most popular videos on the channel normally, so I appreciate all the love. Share with your friends. But you lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.